I certainly wouldn't start out with Trump as the kind of ideal here. I think if we zoom out a bit, what we're seeing globally is a rise in what's called ethno-nationalism, the idea that the only way you can be a citizen of a country is to be born in that country, or ideally, people would say, your ancestors be born in that country. What I think we have to do as progressives, we're a progressive think tank at IPPR, is make the case that actually most people believe you can earn Britishness by contributing. And the thing that we can learn from America is that they celebrate people wanting to become American. They make a big deal out of that process, and they make contribution to America as a great nation a big part of that. Now, Trump is not talking much about that, but that is the history of American immigration and citizenship, and we can learn from that here. My understanding is that the evidence is clear that migrants that come into this country contribute more in terms of what they put in economically than they take out. I think the debate, though, should not just be an economic one. People are angry about immigration, not just because of the economic side, but because the country has changed so quickly, the pace of change has been rapid. But what I would say is if you look at the numbers now, they are way down. They were, under the previous government, it was up to 1 million a year. It's now down to 200,000. People are saying it might get to 0. And it hasn't miraculously fixed all our problems, just like Brexit didn't miraculously fix all our problems. So I would say we need to have a really sensible, level-headed debate about this, because there is a role for migration. Migrants can contribute, but it needs to be done in a way that's sensible and has public support. And I think that's the principles the government have talked about. As I say, there are some concerns about the actual detail of the policy, about whether that will support the aspirations.
I think you have to hold on to your hats. Energy in the UK under this policy is going to get ever more expensive. And Ed Miliband, I'm afraid, will go down as the Secretary of State that has deindustrialised this nation more than any other in the entirety of our history.
I have to say I disagree with Craig here. I mean, if you look at what has driven the energy price increases, 3/4 of that increase has come from Ukraine, and it's come from gas. Just to zoom out a bit, this is such an important issue. People feel that they are being squeezed by inflation on the one hand and stagnant wages on the other. They think that dealing with the cost of living crisis is the most important issue that the government has to tackle. And despite what I've just said, they think it's government's fault, both past and present, and it's government's responsibility to fix it. Now, at the budget last year, the government took £150 off average bills, and it did that through a mechanism which said those levies that are currently put on bills to fund things like water, to fund things like climate infrastructure, should be put into general taxation, and ideally taxation on those with the broadest shoulders. And that is what other countries do. More of our infrastructure is funded by levies that are borne by individuals and disproportionately by those who are poorest, because they pay a bigger share of their income on bills than other countries are. So there is a model there that the government has outlined about how you can reduce bills, you can still fund the infrastructure, because we need that, in a way that is fair. They need to go further, because 150 off is good, and we want to be caught, we have to be caught trying here, but there is more to do.
So kidding ourselves that we shift it onto tax, that's not a reduction, is it? It's the same pennies just being distributed.
It is, but if you have a progressive taxation system, it means that the people with the broadest shoulders are paying. And the point is, someone has to pay this. I agree with Belle that we need to refocus this debate on the victims, and that needs to be the main priority. And then I think the other priority for the government needs to be recognising that this is now fundamentally an issue of trust in politics. Keir Starmer came into government saying that he was the adult in the room, that he was going to sort out trust in politics after Boris Johnson, Partygate and Liz Truss. And I think people will look at this and think, I knew I was right, that you're all the same. And it's very easy in these situations to go, there's one bad apple. Actually, what this exposes is a systematic problem with politics. And for example, I would like to see much bolder action that deals with that at its root cause. So, one question about this has been the relationship between money and power, which you see in this. What about a cap on political donations to get big money out of politics? What about dealing with some of the root problems?